Welcome to OLC 40. This is term 1B, and today is class 20. We're going to be looking at A30 and A31 plus suffixes. It is Monday, December 18th, 2023. I am broadcasting from home today. My apologies. I've got a little bit of a sickness. If you hear me coughing, my apologies. I will do my best not to, but there's no guarantees. Whenever you hand in work, please send it to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. This way the secretary can log that you submitted the work. Please make sure your full name, course name, assignment name and number, and if the assignment asks for both a rough and a good draft, please label which is which and include them both in the same email. If you have a question about an assignment, you can message me at jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. You can also message me at Facebook, capital G, capital P, ERCY space, capital W, AHSA. Make sure to friend me so I notice the request, okay? YouTube, if you want to re-listen to an assignment, you can go to YouTube, capital G, capital P, ERCY space, WAHSA. So right now we are up to assignment 30. Term 1B, I have covered all the assignments right to the end. So if you are ahead of where we are right now, you can always go and check out some of the assignments over there, okay? And if you're behind, you can always go back to some of the previous ones. They will be posted on the 1B playlist on my YouTube channel. So today's work. Today we are going to understand common suffixes and how they change the meaning of a word, sorry. Overview of Unit 3 and the assignments there. Examining visuals and how they help us understand text. And then looking at Chapter 5 and Chapter 6 of Jimmy Comes Home. So a little bit of all sorts of things. Knowing common suffixes can help you figure out new or unfamiliar words. Most of us use about 20,000 words actively. We often recognize about 40,000 more words that we may not use commonly. That's according to dictionary expert Susie Dent. However, there are a lot more words in the English language. The second edition of the 20-volume Oxford English Dictionary contains full entries for 171,476 words that are in current use, plus 47,156 obsolete words. That's over 20,000 words in the language. So we are always encountering new words in books and other areas. Knowing what suffixes means is one tool to help you puzzle out the meaning of new words. So hang on a second, we will go take a look at some common suffixes. Hang on. There we go. Okay. So this is not all the suffixes in the world because we have lots. This is some of the ones. Okay. Oh, why is it doing that? My apologies. Okay. So just a quick review. Prefixes come at the beginning of a root word. Suffixes come at the end. We looked the other day at some of the really common ones like adding an S for plural, adding ed to show the past tense, adding ing to show that something's happening continuously. Okay, so different parts of speech have different types of suffixes. Which is one of the reasons why we learned about parts of speech. So here are some suffixes for adjectives. Able just means you're capable. So if you have a word like adaptable, it means that you're capable of adapting. Or noticeable means you're capable of being noticed. Airy is like relating to solitude. Disciplinary, relating to discipline. Oh, okay. ER is more, so bigger is more big, taller is more tall. Est would be most, like that's the smallest of all the children. That's the cutest of the kitties. Full is full of something. Very obvious, that one. Careful, wonderful. Here we go. Able is much like capable. Credible is capable of receiving credit. Terrible, capable of causing terror. Ick is relating to. So poetic is relating to poetry. Photographic is relating to photography. Childish ish is having the characteristics of a child. Softish, having some characteristics of being soft. Less is without. So meaningless is without meaning. Careless, without any cares. Hopeless, without hope. Like. Characteristics or similarities too. So if I said something's lifelike, like it's a very lifelike portrait, it shares similarities with something alive. It looks very alive. Or childlike, having some of the characteristics of a child. Us is having the qualities of. Cautious, having qualities of caution. Generous, having qualities of generosity. Y by itself will sound like the E at the end. Made up or characterized by. So fruity, sticky, funny. Okay, here are some other suffixes for nouns. Age or age is an action or the process of. Passage, the action of passing through. Marriage, the process of being married. All is an act or the process of, again. Refusal, the act of refusing. Denial, the process of denying. Remember, we've talked before, like, why is there sometimes more than one way to get across the same meaning in prefixes and suffixes? And one of the reasons is just simply, again, because English borrows from other languages. And so that means sometimes we have multiple, what they call prefixes or affixes, that are giving the same kind of meaning. So aunt is a person who's doing something. So servant is a person who serves. Assistant is a person who assists. Crassy is power or rule. So democracy is rule by the entire or most of the population. Aristocracy is the highest class. So those would be like the kind of like the old English style, right? Where you had the lords and ladies and they were the ones in charge of things. Dumb. In this case, they don't mean like a place. This is a state of being, like a kingdom, or if you feel boredom, or you're in the freedom state. Is just a person. So a carpenter is a person who does carpentry. A teacher is a person who teaches. S is a female. So a lioness is a female lion. An actress is a female actor. It is like a small or like a mini version of something. So a kitchenette would be like a little small kitchen. You might get that in some hotels. Or a cigarette is originally like a mini version of a cigar. Hood is the state of. So like motherhood is the state of being a mother. Childhood, the state of being a child. This one's kind of, I'm trying to think of how to say that one. Shun, I guess, the action of. So celebration is the action of celebrating. Completion is the act of completing or having completed something. Ism, and ism is a belief. Communism, theism, right? Atheism. Itty is having the quality of an activity, having the quality of being active. Simplicity, having the quality of being simple. Log is speech. So you can have a dialogue, which would be speech between two people, or you can have monologue, which would be where one person just kind of talks. Like what I'm doing right now is kind of a monologue. Meant is the result or the action of. Enchantment is the result of enchanting. Argument is the action of arguing. Movement is the action of moving. Ness is a state of being. So sickness is the state of being sick, or gentleness is the state of being gentle. Or is relating to a person again. So an actor is a person who acts. A narrator is a person who narrates. Ship is a position. Citizenship, the position of a citizen in a country. Friendship, the position of being friends. Hardship, a hard or difficult position. The TH is a quality. So depth, having the quality of being deep. Warmth, having the quality of being warm. And you hear that in ordinal numbers as well, like seventh, having the quality of 7, or ninth, having the quality of 9. And then we're looking at suffixes for verbs. Here we have eyes. Eyes is like become. So civilize is to become civil. Humanize, to become human. Socialize, to become social. N also means to become. So, to become. So soften, sorry, is to become soft, or loosen, to become loose. And then iffy is like make or become. Simplify, to make simple, or solidify, to make solid. And then we have some suffixes for adverbs. Ward is a direction, so toward is the direction of something. Backward, forward, it's telling you what your direction you're going into. And then we have some suffixes that work for adjectives and nouns. Ac is related to, so cardiac relates to the heart. So if I said he had a cardiac arrest, he had a heart stoppage. Maniac, relating to mania. Mania is like a kind of a hyper state, right? An is relating to or belonging to. So American is from or belonging to the continent of America, the United States. That's an adjective. Mathematician is related to or belonging to the field of mathematics. And then we have some suffixes that work for nouns or verbs. Cycle, which is just a circle, so bicycle is a vehicle with two circular wheels. Recycle is a circle of reusing resources, which is a verb. And then we have ear, volunteer, someone who's engaged or involved in something, a person engaged in volunteer activities, or the act of engaging in volunteer activities, or an engineer, a person involved in designing engines and machines. Oh, and there we go. Last one here. Wise is direction. So if I say you're moving clockwise, you're going in the direction the clock moves. If I say lengthwise, you're going in the direction of the length. And I think a lot of these we just intuitively know, but having them kind of in the forefront of your mind as something you understand and can apply to new words is really helpful. Okay, so today we are starting Unit 3, and we have, as always, 5 lessons in this unit. Lesson 1 is about the value of visuals. Lesson 12 is it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Lesson 13 is looking at narrative text and looks at dialogue a whole bunch. Lesson 4 is about applying for work. And lesson 15 is about a resume. Essentially, we've got about 10 assignments. However, assignment number 35 is quite large and has multiple parts, so you might want to count that as 2 assignments. There are also 3 journal entries, as you can see. Please do your best with them because they get handed in again during lesson 20. And as well, reviewing them and doing a good job with these can help you when you're writing assignment 43 at the end, because at that point, we look over all our work. And so these little spots where we take a mini pause and look at stuff can be really helpful when you're doing that bigger assignment. Okay, so lesson 1 is the value of visuals. This is worth 20 marks. We already did a bunch of work with visuals in Unit 2. The final lesson on that theme will focus on charts or graphs and maps, all of which give readers a lot of information without using a lot of words. So most people, including students, are visual learners. And on a circle or a pie graph, it looks something like this. And I'll show you that in a minute. But anyways, visual learners learn best through seeing. Auditory learners learn best through hearing. Kinesthetic learners learn best through doing. Tactile learners learn best through hands-on activities. So you can see the blue is visual learners. That's about 2/3 of the circle. And then all the other learning types combined are 1/3. So we are very visual people in general. I don't know if you know, but computers used to be way more text-based and word-based. They switched to more icon-based operating systems like Windows and Mac because so many people found those icons easier to use and understand. Okay, assignment 30 is interpreting visuals. This part is worth 10 marks. Charts or graphs and maps help us in our everyday lives, and often we do not even realize we are reading them. They help us figure things out at a glance. For example, if you look at the second page in your novel, you will see a table of contents. You can skim or scan the page to find out what the different chapters are called and on which pages they begin. Can you imagine if that was written out in sentence form, it would take you so much longer to locate the chapter you're looking for, and it would look all crammed and disorganized on the page. We have to be thankful for visuals. Charts or graphs and maps allow readers to understand information quickly and efficiently and make conclusions based on the data. Your task is to use the skills you've learned about visuals to answer the following questions. There we go. Okay, so the first couple questions are about the map. And part one says, all maps have titles. The map on page 4 is missing a title, which makes it difficult to understand the information presented. Skim and scan the names on the map, access your prior knowledge, and come up with a name for the map. Give the map a good title. 2 marks. Make sure the title represents what the map is actually about, right? Number 2, something else is missing from this map, and that is a compass rose. Compass rose shows you which direction is north. In the case of most maps, including this one, north is straight up and south is straight down, including east and west. Draw a compass rose, which has like a star shape on the map, 2 marks. Now, this is a kind of a complicated one, and if you have trouble with that, I kind of made the parts for an easier one. So if you want an easier one, you would draw a line across, just a straight line, and then line up, kind of like you're making a big plus sign, right? And then you're going to have a slanted line that starts from the right and goes down to the left, and then one that starts at the left and goes down to the right, and they should all crisscross. And then you would just put these little arrowheads, or you would draw yours, right? I have to kind of make them up ahead of time because it'd be too hard to draw them. And see, I'm not sure about that one. There we go. Okay, almost there. Okay, so I made my these are my north south ones. Made them a little bit bigger. I think that's typical in compass roses, but you don't have to. And I always would put the cardinal or the main 4 directions first. There's north up top, and then south would go on the bottom, and then east, whoops, would go over here. When I was a kid, there was two kind of sayings that we would use to remember the order of the cardinal things, and it was never eat shredded wheat or never eat sour watermelon. Okay, now in between north and east is northeast, and they always say the cardinal direction first. Okay, and then between north and west, we would have northwest, and south and east would be southeast, and then south and west we would have southwest. So this is a pretty easy compass rose. It maybe looks a little bit more complicated because of how I'm moving things around, but if you were drawing that, that really wouldn't take you very long to draw, okay? Okay. All right, and then question number 3 on the map says, in 2 sentences, describe the location of your home community. Use words such as north, south, etc. Pretend that somebody is planning a trip to see you. On the next page is the map you are using to answer the 3 questions. Let me see here. Okay, this directions question is one that people kind of find hard to do. Remember that when you're giving people directions on how to get somewhere, you have to have a starting point. You could use Thunder Bay or Sioux Lookout or Kenora or Pickle Lake as starting points. So for example, if I was telling someone how to get from Sioux Lookout to Kenora, I might say something like this. Take Highway 72 out of Sioux Lookout, driving northwest. At Denorvik, turn left and head west for about 30 minutes to get to Dryden. I have to use directional words. That's kind of the whole point of it, right? So hang on, the next page is I think the map, yeah. So here we've got our little compass rose that we've got. This is kind of hard to see on here because it's so tiny. Now, if I was going to tell you guys how to get to my home community, which is Windsor, which is way down here, I might explain it something like this. Go to the southernmost tip of Ontario, find Lake Erie, here it is, go west from Lake Erie until you reach Windsor. Okay, so it doesn't have to be very long, but you do need to make sure you include cardinal directions in your explanation, okay? Now, they're about to show us the graph. Here are some questions about the graph, okay? According to the graph, approximately what percentage of the population over the age of 65 is Indigenous or Aboriginal? That's for 1 mark. Number 5, according to the graph, approximately what percentage of the population under the age of 20 is Indigenous? And then number 6, use the graph above to make 2 statements which compare the Indigenous population to the non-Indigenous population. An example of a comparative statement in this case would be, more non-Indigenous people are between the ages of 20 and 64. Try to use words just more, fewer, etc. So here is the graph. So it's talking about age. On this axis, it's talking about the percentage of population. So 0%, 10%, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, or 70%. This section is 0 to 19 years. This middle section is 20 to 64 years. And this far section here is 65 plus. The darker column is the Aboriginal, and the gray column is non-Aboriginal. Now, sometimes you can see it doesn't go right up to the top, so you're going to have to make an educated guess as to how much it is. So, for example, for this one, it's not quite halfway. Halfway, I would say, is 35. It's a little bit more than that. I would say maybe it's 38. This one seems like it might be about halfway. That's probably maybe 25. Up here, maybe this is 37-ish. This is a titch over, maybe it's 61. This might be 5%. This might be 12 or 13%. So you have to be aware that obviously, even though they can't write every single number here, they expect you to just be able to make a good estimate based on what you know about numbers. So some sample statements that you can make about data on a graph. So these are like a pattern that you're going to see really commonly when people talk about graphs. Something has more than something, or something has less than something, or you could say the most is, or the least is. So here is a sample graph. This one is the population of the United States, and here they're comparing male and female population from 1985 and then every 5 years up into 2010. If I was just looking at this graph and wanted to think of some things I could say, there are all sorts of things I could say. For example, if you look at it, orange is always higher. There's always a little bit more females than there are males, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure why that is. The male population is consistently lower in every single year they checked. The population overall of both male and female was lowest in the year 1985. It's highest in the year 2010, and you can see it's consistently getting higher, right? In the year 1985, there were 122 females. In the year 1985, there were 6 more females, 6 million more females, sorry, than there were males. In the year 2010, there were 152 million males. In the year 2010, there were 5 million fewer males than females. So those are some examples of the type of math sentences we're looking for you to be able to say. Okay. Sometimes I find students are confused by the phrases more and more than because they seem really similar, right? But they're actually asking two different things mathematically. More is actually asking something pretty simple. Look at two items and decide which one has more as a total. For example, John has 5 apples. Peter has 8 apples. Who had more? Peter has more apples. But what if it asks you something more like this? How many more apples does Peter have than John? This isn't asking you to tell who has more anymore. Now they're asking you to tell the difference between the number of apples the boys have. They both have at least 5 apples. How many more does Peter have to get to 8? Well, it takes 3 more apples to get Peter from 5 to 8. So Peter has 3 more apples than John. You can also do it with subtraction, like 8 minus 5 equals 3. Okay? There are all sorts of YouTube videos if you're wanting to check that out. Oh, we'll go to there shortly. Reading log. If you have not been keeping up your reading log, please try and do some. It is one of the items that you need to send in with your portfolio, which is worth 10% of your mark. It does not need to just be novels, right? It can be any kind of reading. So here you can see, I've used instructions and procedures, Facebook messages, flyer, brochures, posters. Length of time could be very short, like 5 minutes, or much longer, like 30 minutes. And then I put an idea or comment about what the reading was about. Okay. Other items might be maps, weather reports, job ads, rummage sale notices, recipes, grocery lists, notes from a friend, hockey pool. Anything that involves reading is totally legitimate to put here. It does not have to be novels. Okay. So here we have assignment 31. This is a journal entry on visuals, 10 marks. And here's the assignment. It says, the last several lessons you have done in this course have focused on visuals. Use this opportunity to describe in a paragraph containing 6 or 7 sentences what you think the use of visuals is all about and why we have spent some time on it. We know that they add to our understanding of material, and also to make the material we are going through more interesting with some variety. In your paragraph, also include some examples of visuals used and where we often see them. Okay, so some people have found this a really difficult journal. I'm not sure, maybe because they haven't really thought about visuals before, or maybe the wording is a bit confusing. So I'm going to stress it's really important to do some brainstorming before this particular journal, right? Even though it doesn't ask you to send in a rough copy, it's still a great idea to do one, right? And especially a great idea to do your brainstorming. So things to think about. What exactly are visuals anyway? Well, we've talked about maps, graphs, charts, tables, symbols, emojis, diagrams, photographs, infographics, not infographics. Sounds like something we're going to forget rather than remember. Comics and illustrations. Sorry, hang on a second. Okay, so I'm going to turn this assignment into a bit of a checklist to help make it more clear. So give me some example of visuals and where we might see them. And be specific. Don't say anywhere. Like you might say, we see a lot of illustrations in children's books, or we see a lot of icons in Facebook messages. Explain why you think we use visuals in text. Why not just write everything out in sentences? We have talked about that a little bit. Why not? List some examples of how different visuals might be helpful in different ways. Think about different text formats and how and which type of visuals might improve them. So, for example, a history textbook, a magazine article on climate change, a newspaper report on the city budget, a blog. Remember, as you're doing it, your paragraph format. There should be a main topic sentence, which is like a general statement that introduces the main idea. Then there should be a detail 1 where there's a statement, example, or detail that supports the main idea. Detail 2, same thing. Detail 3, detail 4, detail 5. And then you would have your concluding sentence, which would restate the main idea up top in some fashion. So here's an example of some of the brainstorming I did. History textbook would probably be easier to understand if it had like photographs, maps, letters, posters, and ads. So then I turn that into some sentences. Some types of texts may have material that is hard to picture because we are unfamiliar with the topic. A history textbook can be made much more interesting to read with the help of photographs that show us older houses, clothes, and transportation. Ads and posters from different time periods can help us understand their lifestyles, their current events, issues, prices, and other things. Maps could help us understand distances between places, or population changes, or shipping routes. So, I wrote a lot about one example just to show you that it can be done. You would just kind of like talk long rather than talking short. The more detailed you get about your ideas, the more you have to say. Often people are just trying to be too vague. They're just trying to think of something generic to say about all graphs, and it's kind of too big. Whereas if you think about, well, how could a graph help you understand a newspaper article on finance? Okay, well, how about how could a graph help you understand population in an article about booming population? So you have to kind of be more specific, I find, to have more to say. Okay, so vague in general versus specific in detail. Vague might be something like visuals help us understand what we read better. Whereas if I could get more specific, I could say something like visuals like maps can help us understand distances between places, population expansion, or natural resources. I like seeing visuals when I read. That's kind of general. We don't really know what you mean. I find visuals like graphs helpful for understanding data. So a lot of times people are being very general. If you get more specific, it's way easier to write and you're going to get higher marks. Okay, remember to end with a great concluding sentence. And I found this nice little video on concluding sentence. Let's take a look at this and see if this works for us. Hang on. Oh, you know what? Oh, here we go.
The concluding sentence. An independent paragraph, that is, a paragraph that is not part of a longer composition, often has a concluding sentence at the end. A concluding sentence closes the paragraph so that the reader is not left expecting more. In this, you see a cheeseburger sandwich. The concluding sentence is like the bottom piece of bread on a cheeseburger sandwich. Sometimes a concluding sentence reminds the reader of the main point by restating the topic sentence in different words. For example, indeed a beach is a place to have fun all year. In short, you have 3 delicious choices when you order Thai curry. Sometimes a concluding sentence summarizes the main points. In short, flight attendants are friendly, self-confident, and strong. To summarize, employers look for dependable, responsible team players. Do not introduce a new idea in your concluding sentence. Just review or repeat the ideas you have already discussed. Here are 2 examples which are wrong. Also, flight attendants love to travel. In conclusion, I hope to become a flight attendant someday. Use a transition signal to tell your reader that this is the end of your paragraph. The following chart lists several conclusion signals. Notice that there is always a comma after conclusion signals. Conclusion signals. To conclude, in conclusion. To sum up, to summarize, in summary. In brief, in short, indeed.
Okay, I thought they did a nice little job there of explaining what they were doing. Hang on.
The
Oh,
concluding
oh,
sentence.
hang on a second. See if I can escape. There we go. Okay. Okay. So for this journal, you don't need to hand in a rough draft and a final draft to me, but you should consider doing one for yourself. Taking the time to polish up your writing and making it the best it can be can often increase a grade from a C to a B or even to an A. Things to always look at before you hand in. Does it make sense? Like each sentence. Is each sentence clear, interesting, and useful? Have I avoided run-on sentences? Remember, more than 2 sentences pushed together is a run-on sentence. Have I used transition words and phrases to help the flow of the paragraph and make it easier to read? Have I checked for cups, capitalization, usage, punctuation, and spelling? Here are some useful transition words and phrases. They already listed some for the conclusion. These are some other ones that would work at other places in your paragraph. To start, to begin, firstly, now, in addition, additionally. One example, another example. Next, after that, also, as well, another way to look at, one reason, another reason. Although, even so, as a result, furthermore, finally, in conclusion, to summarize. These are a way to sort of join the ideas in one sentence to the ideas that came in a previous sentence. And it really helps the flow of your overall paragraph. It's like you're pointing things out to your reader. They're not having to connect the dots. You're connecting the dots for them, right? You're kind of like being a tour guide of your own paragraph for them. Okay, let's take a look at chapter 5 in Jimmy Comes Home. Hopefully you've read this already. Chapter 5 is basically all about Teresa. It's not a very long chapter. Teresa thinks about her dream to go to Winnipeg and finish high school so she can become a nurse. She feels sad that she will probably have to leave her baby Chance behind, but her mom feels good about it. She decides she doesn't want to try to avoid Jimmy anymore, and that maybe it would be a good thing if she talks to him, because then he might get involved in Chance's life. She thinks about how Jimmy used to be before he got involved with drugs, alcohol, and gas, and how afterwards he became too violent and out of control. Jimmy tries to come visit Teresa, but her mom doesn't let him come see her because she does not want Teresa getting involved with him again. Like I said, this is a very short chapter. It's mostly talking about what Teresa is thinking and planning. Because up until now, we've mostly been seeing things from Jimmy's point of view. Okay, trigger warning. Chapter 6 is a bit intense, and it can be hard to read due to the emotional issues it raises up. If you find reading this chapter too triggering, please feel free to skip this particular chapter if you need to. You can also stop listening to this video as I will be discussing chapter 6 on the next page. There will be no other assignments discussed after I discuss chapter 6. Please call any of the numbers on the next page if you feel sad or depressed or are struggling with thoughts of self-harm or suicide. Okay. Chapter 6. Jimmy thinks about the teacher Quintel. The kids at school really like her. She plays sports and activities after school with them and is very patient with those who are having difficulties. She is willing to talk to the kids about any problems that they have. She won't tolerate anyone fooling around in her class, though. She brings food for the class on Fridays. She manages to talk Jimmy into taking some homework home a few times. A big snowstorm is coming into Green Star Lake, and the lake is starting to ice over. Jimmy is looking forward to taking his machine out onto the ice. His friend Gary seems to be avoiding him since he refused to get involved with selling drugs with him. He refuses to answer the door when he goes to visit, calls him names, and tells Jimmy to get out of the way. Jimmy is determined not to get in trouble with the cops because he really doesn't want to go back to jail again. He does find himself missing the drugs and the alcohol and the gas. A couple of times he tried sniffing gas again. Once he tries getting back together with one of the girls he did drugs with at the cabin, but he doesn't find her interesting anymore when he's not like high. He stops going to school for a little while, but then his teacher Quintal comes to get him and makes him come to school. He is not very happy about it, but he does it because he doesn't want to upset his grandmother. Okay. Um, Jimmy goes to have a talk with Gary. This chapter goes into a lot of detail about Gary's home life, which is not good and has been consistently not good for a long time. I'm not going to go into all the details there. You can read that if you want to, or you can avoid it if you don't want to. Gary got involved with drugs, gas, and alcohol by about grade 7. And Jimmy seems to think that he seems permanently damaged by the substance abuse and that it makes it hard for Gary to think. Jimmy's quite worried about this actually. Gary is trying to talk Jimmy into helping him bring drugs in from Thompson to sell to make money. Jimmy tries to explain to him that he doesn't want to do this because he doesn't want to go to jail, but Gary really doesn't take his concerns very seriously. He's mostly focused on all the money they can make. I think in the book it talks about how his mother isn't working, and so it's kind of fallen on Gary to be the one that brings home the money. Gary talks about thoughts of suicide and and about how some of the other people that they know have done it. He also talks about how bad things are at home. They are very broke. His mom has diabetes and is getting sicker. They never have enough food. After they finish talking, Jimmy falls asleep on the dock. He is really worried about Jimmy at that point. Okay. Like I said, I know this is a very triggering chapter. I know I found it hard to read. I've had a few students reach out to me and tell me they found it hard to read. Like I said, you can skip it if you want to. It's not going to significantly affect your understanding of the story because I've just given you a brief overview. Okay. If you are feeling at all like having thoughts of self-harm, having thoughts of suicide, or any of those kind of things, you can call these helplines, right? There's a toll-free helpline at 1-855-242-3310, or you can connect to the online chat at www.hopeforwellness.ca. There is also a crisis line, 1-833 456 4566. That is toll free. There's a line called Talk for Healing that is specifically aimed towards Indigenous women, uh, but it's available in 14 languages all across Ontario. 1-855-554/heal. And then the Métis Nation of Ontario's Healing and Wellness branch, they have a 24-hour mental health and addictions crisis line, and that is only available in English and French. Once connected, it says services can be delivered in person, over the phone, or by video conference. I'm not sure what they mean by that, but they would be worth giving a phone call to. 1-877-767-7572. And then there is the Enatig Healing Lodge and Learning Center, 705-534-3724. Fort Francis Tribal Area Health Centers, 807 271 0194. And of course, as always, you can reach out to the nursing station in your community. You can reach out to, there's almost always mental health counselors. You can even call the police, right? They're gonna and ask for help. They're gonna provide help, right? No one's gonna be angry. People are just gonna try and provide services and help you through the hard times. And just be confident that if you're going through hard times right now, it never stays hard times, right? They always get better. So we will try and look positive here. So hang on. It says you will need to have read up to chapter 9 for assignment 35. We aren't there yet, but we're getting close. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying not to cough here. Looking for my, here we go. Hang on a second. Oh my goodness. Sorry, friends. Okay. We have not yet discussed chapter 8. The last 3 chapters don't read yet because they come up in, I believe, assignment 40. Okay. We all read at different speeds, so be mindful of this as you're planning out your assignments. Some people might be very quick readers and can read things very quickly. Some people might be slower readers, in which case kind of plan for that and give yourself a little more time to have everything read. If you feel like you need a lot of time to catch up to where we are in the novel, slow down on the assignments and try to do some catch-up reading. Like I said, chapter 6 is not crucial to understanding this novel. Hang on, if I think I've done everything at this point. Yep, end of presentation. A little bit short today. Tomorrow we will look at assignment 32, maybe assignment 33. And we are getting closer to the end because unit 4 is quite a short unit. It only has 5 assignments, I believe. So if you've gotten this far, uh, please be proud of yourself, feel confident. You absolutely have the ability to finish this whole course if you have gotten this far. Right? There's nothing coming up ahead that is that much harder than anything we've done so far. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow is our last day of classes before the Christmas break, and then we will rejoin you in January. Okay? I am working at home, but if you send me a message, I will get your message. I am not in the office and cannot receive phone calls right now, though. Sorry about that. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Hang on. Oh, here we go.